Every single night, tens of millions of people wake up to use the bathroom. Not once, not a quick trip and back to sleep. 2 times, 3 times, sometimes 4 or 5, dragging themselves out of a warm bed, shuffling across a cold floor, squinting against a light that feels like a flashbang at 2 in the morning, and then lying back down, staring at the ceiling, listening to their own heart beating while sleep refuses to return. And here is what nobody is telling you at your appointment. In roughly 80% of these cases, the bladder is completely healthy. It is not the problem. It never was the problem. The pills, the supplements, the herbal blends marketed for prostate health or bladder control, the ones lining the shelves of every pharmacy right now in 2026, they are aimed at entirely the wrong organ. The bladder is not the enemy, it is the alarm, and you have been trying to silence the alarm while the fire burns somewhere else entirely. What I am about to walk you through is the physiology that your doctor does not have time to explain in a 12-minute appointment. Not because they don't know it, because the appointment ends before it can be said. So it is going to be said here, completely, with nothing left out. Picture this. It is 3 in the morning. Your apartment is completely still. You finally sank into that deep, heavy sleep, the good kind, the kind where your body actually repairs itself. And then the signal comes. Faint at first, somewhere at the edge of awareness. You try to roll over. You try to think past it. But the pressure builds until it is impossible to ignore. You throw back the covers, drop your feet onto a cold floor, and shuffle to the bathroom half-conscious. You do what you came to do. You come back to bed. And sleep is gone. Your mind is running now. Work, an unresolved conversation, something you forgot to do yesterday. You lie there for 40 minutes, finally drift back under, and it happens again. Second time. You get up, go back, return to bed. By the time morning arrives, you are shattered, heavy-headed, functioning on half a tank, pouring coffee into yourself just to get through the day. And when you finally sit down with a doctor, what do you hear? This is just part of getting older. Everyone gets up at night eventually. Let's be completely direct about that statement. It is wrong. It is a dangerous myth, and it needs to be dismantled right now. Getting up to urinate at night is not a normal feature of aging. Not at 50, not at 60, not at 75. A healthy body, regardless of age, is physiologically equipped to sleep 7 to 8 hours without a single bathroom interruption. The mechanism that makes this possible is not complicated, but almost nobody explains it. During nighttime hours, the brain produces a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, also known as vasopressin. Think of it as a memo sent from the brain to the kidneys at the moment darkness falls and sleep begins. The message is simple. Slow down. Night shift. Concentrate the urine, reduce the volume, run in economy mode. This hormonal instruction is what allows a healthy person to sleep a full night undisturbed. Their kidneys receive the memo, comply with it, and produce far less urine during sleep hours than during waking ones. When that mechanism breaks down, for any of several reasons we are going to examine in detail, the condition that results is called nocturia. That is the medical term for urinating repeatedly during nighttime hours. And it is a diagnosis, not a lifestyle inconvenience. 1 waking per night is a warning signal. 2 or more is an alarm going off because every single time you wake up, your pulse jumps, your blood pressure spikes, and you interrupt the stage of sleep where your brain clears metabolic waste products, where neurons repair themselves, where your heart genuinely rests. Years of losing that stage of sleep creates a direct physiological path toward hypertension, depression, impaired cognitive function, and accelerated cardiovascular aging. Published clinical research has placed the cardiovascular stress of chronic nocturia in a category that most people would find genuinely alarming if it were presented to them plainly. Now here is the most critical thing to understand, and it is the thing almost everyone gets wrong. When patients come in with this complaint, the majority have already made up their minds about the cause. Men say it with certainty, it is the prostate. Women say it with equal certainty, it is menopause, or the bladder, or a chronic infection. They have been drinking diuretic herbal teas, buying targeted supplements, restricting their fluid intake so aggressively by evening that their mouths are completely dry by 9 o'clock. They stop drinking anything after 6, they go to bed parched, and they still wake up at 2 in the morning with a full bladder. Why? Because they are fighting the symptom, not the cause. Here is the model that makes everything else in this video click into place. Imagine your home's fire alarm goes off at 3 in the morning. What do most people instinctively do? They find a way to silence the alarm, cover the sensor, pull out the battery, stop the noise. The correct response is to find the fire. Your bladder is the alarm sensor. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do, signaling that it is full and asking to be emptied. The problem is not the sensor. The problem is what is filling it during the night, and why. And the answer to that question is the part of this conversation that most people never reach. The culprit, in the majority of cases, is your legs and your heart, and the physics of fluid redistribution that happens every single night when a body that spent 16 hours upright finally lies down. Before we go further, there is something that needs to be said clearly. There are specific symptoms that should send you to a doctor immediately, not to a video, not to a supplement, not to a waiting period of hoping it resolves. If you see blood in your urine without pain, remember that combination specifically. That is a serious early warning sign of bladder pathology that requires immediate professional evaluation. Blood in the urine with pain typically indicates a kidney stone or acute infection. Uncomfortable and urgent, but not the same category of concern. Blood in the urine with no pain at all, particularly in anyone over 50, is a direct indication for professional assessment without delay. If your nighttime urination is accompanied by unexplained weight loss and aching in the pelvis or lower back, that pattern deserves medical attention promptly. If none of those apply to you, you are in the conversation we are having here, one about physiology, not pathology. One about a body that is working correctly but being set up by daily habits and physical changes to fail at night. Let's map the three fundamentally different types of nighttime urinary problems, because the treatment for each is different, and what helps one type can actively make another worse. The first type is global polyuria. This means producing too much urine overall, not just at night, but throughout the day as well. You are going frequently around the clock, and each trip produces a large volume. If you collected everything you produced over 24 hours, the total would typically exceed 3 liters. The causes here are either extremely high fluid intake across the day, or an underlying metabolic condition like diabetes, either type 2, where glucose pulls water with it into the urine, or a hormonal disruption involving the brain's own signaling system. This type needs a blood sugar evaluation and often an endocrinology referral. The second type is nocturnal polyuria, and this is the one found in the majority of people over 50 who wake up repeatedly at night. The picture looks deceptively simple. During the day, everything functions normally. You visit the bathroom every 4 or 5 hours. Nothing hurts, nothing feels urgent. But the moment you lie down to sleep, something shifts. 3 or 4 trips through the night, each time producing a genuinely large volume. And in the morning, you look at the situation and cannot account for where the fluid came from. You barely drank anything after dinner. And yet your kidneys produced 1.5 liters of urine between midnight and 6. This is classic nocturnal polyuria. Your kidneys have inverted their schedule. They are running at reduced capacity during daylight hours and at something like full emergency production at night. The bladder has nothing to do with it. Treating the bladder for this type of problem is like replacing the smoke detector batteries when the kitchen is on fire. The third type is a reservoir problem, and this one is different in every important way. Urges are frequent, sudden, and genuinely urgent. You feel like you will not make it. You rush to the bathroom, sit down, and produce almost nothing, 30, 40 milliliters at most. 40 minutes later, the same urgent signal. Again, almost nothing. The problem here is that the bladder itself has lost its ability to stretch to a normal functional capacity, or its nerve signals have become hypersensitive, firing at a fraction of the volume that should trigger urgency. This occurs with benign prostate enlargement in men, overactive bladder in women, chronic low-grade bladder irritation, or small stones. This type genuinely does involve the bladder and genuinely does need a urological evaluation. Lock those 3 patterns in: frequent and large volume day and night, global polyuria; fine during the day, flooding at night, nocturnal polyuria; constant urgent urges producing almost nothing, a reservoir problem. Identify your pattern. It changes everything about what comes next. Now let's talk about the physics. And this is the part that takes everything abstract and makes it completely, viscerally real. For somewhere between 14 and 16 hours each day, you are vertical. Standing, sitting, moving around. Gravity is pulling everything in your body downward. Blood, lymphatic fluid, the interstitial fluid that lives between your cells. All of it trending toward your feet and lower legs. When we are young, our blood vessels behave like strong elastic tubes. The venous valves inside them hold blood firmly and prevent it from pooling below. The muscles of the legs, contracting rhythmically during movement, act as a biological pump, squeezing veins and pushing blood upward against gravity back toward the heart. With age, or with sedentary daily habits, this mechanism weakens. Veins expand and lose tone. Valves begin to leak. The muscle pump shuts down because we are sitting for hours at a desk or a couch. fluid begins to seep through vessel walls into the soft tissue of the lower legs. In the loose connective tissue of the calves and ankles, up to 1.5 liters of water can quietly accumulate across a day. You may not see dramatic swelling. You may not feel it as pain. But when you take your socks off in the evening, there is a groove left behind where the elastic pressed against your skin. Your ring feels tighter by afternoon than it did in the morning. These are not cosmetic curiosities. They are evidence of a reservoir of fluid building in your tissues all day. Your kidneys do not see that fluid. It is temporarily removed from active circulation, held in the tissue. The kidneys only filter what is actually circulating in the blood. Then comes the evening. You finish dinner, sit down, watch something, and eventually go to bed. The moment you lie horizontal, the physics changes completely. Your legs rise to the same level as your heart and kidneys. Gravity no longer holds the pooled fluid down in your lower legs. All of it, every milliliter that accumulated across 12 or 14 hours of being upright, begins rapidly returning to the bloodstream. Reabsorbed into the veins, rushing in a powerful wave toward the center of the body. The volume of circulating blood rises sharply within the first 30 to 60 minutes of lying down. And here is where the heart enters the story. As the returning fluid reaches the heart, the right atrium fills and begins to stretch beyond its comfortable volume. The heart recognizes the system is temporarily overloaded. Pressure is rising. And so it releases a hormone called atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP, into the bloodstream. This is a chemical telegram to the kidneys, and the message is urgent. Dump the excess fluid. Reduce the circulating volume. Protect the heart from overload. ANP blocks the hormones responsible for water retention. The kidneys shift immediately into accelerated filtration mode, expelling water and sodium at a high rate to protect cardiac function. The result is entirely predictable. Within an hour of lying down, your bladder is full. You get up, empty it, return to bed. But the fluid from your legs has not finished redistributing. The process continues. 90 minutes later, full again. The cycle repeats until the reservoir in your legs is finally empty, which may not happen until 4 or 5 in the morning. No prostate supplement, no herbal bladder blend, no restriction of evening fluids. None of these interventions touch the actual mechanism, because the mechanism is gravity, venous insufficiency, and fluid physics. Not the bladder, not the prostate, the legs, and the heart. Now let's talk about what you are eating in the evening, because diet is secretly multiplying this problem for a huge proportion of people, in ways that are not obvious at all. The first hidden enemy is salt. Not the salt you consciously add at the table, but the sodium hidden inside foods that do not taste salty. Hard cheese, cured meats, processed sandwich proteins, mayonnaise, most condiments, canned goods, standard commercially produced bread. The sodium content in a moderate serving of ordinary hard cheese is comparable to what you would find in a large bag of salted snacks, but you do not taste it the same way because it is masked by fat and flavor compounds. Here is what that hidden sodium does overnight. You eat it at 7 in the evening. It enters your bloodstream. Your body immediately activates its defense against elevated blood sodium, holding onto every available molecule of water to dilute the concentration. You are not going to the bathroom excessively in the evening. The salt is keeping the water locked inside you. But then, during the night, your kidneys detect that accumulated sodium and begin actively excreting it. And sodium does not leave alone, it pulls water behind it. To flush a gram of excess sodium, a significant volume of fluid must pass through the kidneys. The result? You wake up not because you drank too much, but because you are eliminating last night's cheese and salami. The second hidden enemy is evening sugar. A piece of fruit, a biscuit with tea, a small dessert after dinner. It seems harmless or even virtuous. But simple carbohydrates in the evening cause a rapid spike in blood glucose, which triggers an insulin response. Insulin, beyond its primary role in blood sugar management, signals the kidneys to retain sodium and water. First comes retention, then 2 to 3 hours later, right around the time you have drifted off to sleep, blood glucose drops sharply. The rebound triggers the kidneys to switch to active fluid excretion. You wake up at 2 in the morning not because you are sick, but because you ate a small apple and a few crackers at 9. And for anyone with even mild insulin resistance, which affects a substantial proportion of adults over 40 and frequently produces no obvious symptoms, elevated blood sugar acts as a direct osmotic diuretic. Sugar itself pulls water out of your cells and into the urine. You are creating a biological water pill simply by eating certain foods at the wrong time of day. The third hidden enemy is alcohol before bed. The reasoning sounds logical enough. A small drink relaxes you, helps you fall asleep faster. And this part is technically true. Alcohol does accelerate sleep onset. What it simultaneously does is completely block antidiuretic hormone, the vasopressin we discussed at the beginning, the factory manager sending the kidneys their night shift memo. Under the influence of alcohol, the brain does not send that memo at all. The kidneys run at full, unrestricted filtration speed through the entire night. Yes, the sedative effect may let you sleep through the first urge, but the bladder keeps filling, and eventually the second urge becomes too large to sleep through. And when you wake at that point, you are both exhausted and desperate. Your overall sleep quality has been poor throughout, with virtually no restorative deep sleep at all. The outcome is objectively worse than if you had not had the drink. Now let's talk about what actually helps, starting with food that protects you. Raw pumpkin seeds, and the specifics matter here. Not roasted, not salted, not flavored. Raw green pumpkin seeds. These contain zinc and magnesium in highly bioavailable forms that the body absorbs efficiently. Magnesium relaxes smooth muscle, including the detrusor, the muscular wall of the bladder, helping it expand to a proper functional volume before triggering the urge to empty. Pumpkin seeds also contain phytosterols that support pelvic floor tissue integrity. A small handful daily, roughly 30 grams, is one of the simplest and most cost-effective bladder health habits available. Unsweetened cranberry, not the bottled juice cocktail, which in most commercial versions contains more sugar than soft drinks. The actual berry, frozen or fresh, or a standardized extract. Cranberries contain compounds called proanthocyanidins that prevent bacteria from adhering to the inner lining of the bladder. Many adults over 40 carry a low-grade bacterial presence in the bladder that produces no acute infection symptoms, but chronically irritates the nerve endings of the bladder wall, making it hypersensitive, triggering urgency at low volumes. Reducing that chronic background irritation calms the entire system. Adequate dietary fiber. The connection here is mechanical. A chronically constipated colon, full of gas and stool, presses directly against the bladder. They share the same pelvic space, and space is finite. A bloated colon behaves like a demanding neighbor, crowding the bladder from outside, compressing it, triggering signals of fullness at volumes far below normal capacity. A colon that moves efficiently gives the bladder the physical room it needs to expand properly during sleep. Evening nutrition summary. Eliminate hidden sodium at dinner. Remove hard cheeses, cured meats, processed proteins, and condiments. Eliminate evening sugar. No fruit, baked goods, or sweetened drinks after 6 in the evening. Put down the nightcap. Add raw pumpkin seeds during the day. Add unsweetened cranberry in small amounts. These changes alter the biochemistry of what your kidneys are processing overnight. But nutrition is the foundation, not the full solution. If your venous valves are weakening and your vessels have lost elasticity, dietary changes alone cannot override the physics of fluid redistribution. We need the practical protocol. Here is a 3-part daily routine, morning, daytime, and evening, that takes a total of roughly 5 minutes and directly addresses the mechanism causing most cases of nighttime urinary disruption. In the morning, before reaching for coffee, take 30 seconds to do what can be called a vibrational heel exercise. Stand upright, feet shoulder-width apart. Rise up onto the balls of your feet just a centimeter or two, and then let your heels drop back to the floor with a light, firm impact. Feel the vibration traveling from your calves up through your legs. Repeat this 30 times at approximately 1 drop per second. What is happening physiologically is this. The venous valves inside your legs need movement to function properly. The rhythmic vibration of this exercise activates those valves, encouraging blood to move upward against gravity from the very start of the day, before the sedentary hours have a chance to begin their damage. If standing is difficult due to knee or back problems, there is a floor version. Lying on your back, raise both arms and legs straight up and shake them with small, rapid movements for 60 seconds. The lymphatic drainage effect is real and measurable. During the day, apply what can be called the waterfall method. 70% of your total daily fluid intake should happen before 4 in the afternoon. A glass of water immediately after waking, fluid at breakfast and during morning hours, water through the working day, tea or soup at lunch. After 4, the tap turns down, not off, because thirst thickens the blood and carries real risks, but reduced to small sips as needed. Shifting fluid intake to earlier in the day means your kidneys process most of it while you are awake, upright, and in control of when you respond. Also remove the salt shaker from the table entirely. Season food only during cooking, not at the table. That single change reduces daily sodium intake by 20 to 30% without altering what you eat. In the evening, approximately 60 to 90 minutes before bed, Do what produces the single most dramatic result. Elevate your legs. Lie on a sofa or the floor and place your legs up on the armrest of a couch, the back of a chair, or flat against the wall. Your heels should be higher than the level of your heart, roughly a 45-degree angle. You do not need to hold them perfectly vertical, just elevated, supported, and comfortable. Stay in that position for 15 to 20 minutes. Read, watch something, listen to audio, whatever you would normally be doing in the evening. What happens during those 20 minutes is the heart of this entire approach. Gravity now works for you instead of against you. It pushes the fluid that accumulated in your lower legs during the day back into the bloodstream. Your heart receives the signal of rising volume. ANP is released. Your kidneys shift into active filtration mode. Your bladder begins to fill. But you are awake. You are alert. You are sitting in the evening in complete control. 30 to 40 minutes after finishing the elevation, you will feel the need to urinate. Go. You will release 300 to 400 milliliters, the exact volume that would otherwise have woken you at 2 or 3 in the morning. That is the principle in its simplest form. You are deliberately wringing out your legs before sleep. You are giving your kidneys their workload in the evening, while you are conscious and capable of handling it, so that at night they can finally rest. If you have visible swelling in your legs by evening, add graduated compression stockings, first-grade compression, knee-high. Put them on when you return home from daily activities. Wear them through the evening until you shower before bed. They prevent fluid from accumulating in the lower leg tissue during the evening hours, reducing the overnight redistribution load. And the final step, already in bed, lights off, before sleep, 20 to 30 repetitions of correctly performed pelvic floor contractions. Not a gluteal squeeze, not an abdominal crunch, specifically the pelvic floor. Imagine you are trying to prevent passing gas, or picture pulling your perineum upward like an elevator rising through several floors. Your abdomen remains soft, your buttocks stay relaxed. Only the internal pelvic floor group engages. Contract, hold for 3 seconds, release slowly. 20 to 30 repetitions. This sends a direct neurological signal through the nerve endings of the pelvic floor to the central nervous system that the containment mechanism is toned, engaged, and capable. The neurogenic overactivity that causes the bladder to alarm at minimal fill volumes decreases. The bladder stops treating every small sensation as an emergency. It begins operating in a calibrated, normal mode. The complete protocol. 30 heel drops in the morning. 70% of fluids consumed before 4 in the afternoon. 15 to 20 minutes of leg elevation 60 to 90 minutes before bed, followed by 1 bathroom trip. Then pelvic floor contractions lying down before sleep. That is 5 minutes distributed across a day. No prescription, no procedure, no significant cost. Now here are 2 simple self-tests you can do right now to determine whether the leg redistribution mechanism is the primary driver in your case. First test. Expose your lower leg and find the shin bone, the hard, unpadded surface running down the front. Place the pad of your thumb against the bone roughly 4 to 6 inches above the ankle. Press firmly and hold for 10 to 15 full seconds. Remove your thumb and run a finger across the same spot. If the skin springs back smooth and flat immediately, there is no significant fluid accumulation. If your thumb left a pit, a visible dent that holds its shape for several seconds before slowly filling back in, you have just located a hidden reservoir of fluid in your tissue. Fluid that your kidneys will process tonight while you sleep. Second test. On a free day, measure your urine output separately for daytime and nighttime hours, using a marked container. If your nighttime output, including your first morning urination, exceeds 1/3 of your total 24-hour output, that is classified medically as nocturnal polyuria. Your kidneys have inverted their schedule, not because of your bladder, because of fluid mechanics and the way your body is redistributing what accumulated in your legs during the day. If both tests come back positive, the pit stays in your shin bone, and nighttime output exceeds that 1/3 threshold, your bladder is almost certainly healthy. The issue is circulatory and positional, and it is addressable with the protocol described here. One additional flag. If you notice that climbing a flight of stairs leaves you needing to stop and catch your breath, if your socks consistently leave visible grooves in your skin by evening, if you have any history of heart irregularities, or have been told your heart is working hard, your first appointment should not be with a urologist. It should be with a cardiologist and a vascular specialist. Fluid redistribution of the severity that causes 4 or 5 nighttime waking can, in some cases, be an early signal of cardiac function that needs attention. Not an emergency, but a conversation worth having with the right specialist, armed with the information from your self-tests. Your body is not malfunctioning. Your bladder is not your enemy. It is a signal light, and it has been telling you something real every single night. Now you know what it is actually saying, and more importantly, you know how to address the source instead of silencing the signal. The protocol works because it is built on physics, biochemistry, and neuroscience. Not on wishful thinking, not on marketing, on the actual mechanism that is generating the problem. It requires one thing: consistency. This is not a pill you take once and forget. You do this every day. But that is precisely what makes it genuinely powerful. Because once the daily habit is established, the physiology shifts, the nightly redistribution load decreases, and sleep returns. Not as a temporary fix, but as a sustained new baseline. Start tonight. Elevate your legs 60 to 90 minutes from now. Do the pelvic floor sequence before you close your eyes. Remove the salt shaker from the table at dinner. And in the morning, before the coffee, 30 heel drops. Your bladder will calm down, not because something was done to it, because the reason it was alarming in the first place has finally been addressed.